two favorite cohorts are, one of them is off socializing with some friends that came into town, and that would be Eric and Dieter Staudinger here from up in the Toronto area, and Diane, normally in the Phoenix area, but now working. You can see how hard she's working right now on a layover in Oklahoma City, and like many of the working flight crews, she gets to leave at dark 30 in the morning to celebrate with the rest of the crew.
Yes, the van is at a little after 6 a.m. This is where the glam part of the job comes in, really.
So we're back here this evening with oh, there we are. Now we're back. Welcome everybody, and I'll open up some slides here. This of course is Fearless Flight Live, and we do this every week. It's our contribution and effort to help any of and all of you out here who have a fear of flying, to see if we can't help you find some insight as to what you can do to be able to not feel so, downtrodden or despaired when you go flying. And so as part of that, we do this every week, and we thank you for lending your trust and your attention to us this night. That is going to be the subject tonight, attention. We have a Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather group. It's a private group on Facebook that you could participate in. Matter of fact, I'm going to add that to the conversation a little bit tonight, a discussion that I saw out there to kind of give light to what that's all about and how that might be a resource that you want to take advantage of. We're up over 900 strong with the membership on there, and the more the merrier, because there's a lot more traffic on it and a lot more likely that you'll find somebody to help. I call it back to the basics. We're gonna actually talk to two people who have been working on their fear flying, and both of them have flights coming up. Nicole Jeffers and Lauren Dicker, they're coming up to fly. Lauren's going to fly with us as part of the class up in Boston in a week from this Saturday, and Nicole is flying with her husband later this week. And so we'll get them on. And then, of course, we're always open to your questions and comments. And if you watch us, if you're watching the replay of this, please feel free to continue to put your questions in there as well. So, okay, with that, we're going to talk about attention. I'm going to invite Lauren and Nicole to join us here, and we'll watch them pop up on the screen. And I'm going to get rid of these slides here in just a minute. But the thing that I'm really focusing on more now is the fact that your fear of flying is really an attention problem, and so that's what we're gonna kind of use that as a context tonight. Where is your attention? Where can you move it to? And how are you going to do that? Because if you can do that, you can overcome your fear of flying, because the difference between you being anxious or afraid to fly and someone who's not is literally the what's going on in your mind and catching your attention right then. So let me, Nicole, you want to say a little bit about your origins? Where did you hail from, or where did you come from? Where'd you hail from? And
sure.
Okay.
So I live in Maryland, near Annapolis, and I've lived here pretty much my whole life. Okay. I have 4 children. They are 17, 15, 13, and 11, 3 girls and a boy. My husband and I have been married 20 years this December, and hence the reason for the trip that we didn't take in December because COVID was too crazy and we were hoping things would die down, but the Bahamas still has quite a lot of restrictions that you have to test to get in, test 2 days in, test on the 5th day, test to get back in the United States. It's a little crazy. But anyways, we feel safe flying in that respect. I've had a fear of flying for a long time. I do have a generalized anxiety disorder, a lot having to do with control. And I think that is one of the things for me. I did have a couple bad flights at a very young age. My parents would fly us down to my aunt who lived in St. Simons, Georgia. and we would go by ourselves, me and my siblings. And there were a couple times there were some scary to me situations, and that fear grew. And then of course, on top of that, having children makes it even more of the case. So that's a little bit about me. And I do fly. I have not, actually I take that back. I do fly probably once a year. During COVID, it had probably been about 2.5 years. I am sad to say that I did walk away from a job because of flying. That would have been a really big deal. And I kick myself sometimes for that. And that was about 4 years ago. And that's when I started to get a little more serious. But then of course with COVID, I was like, I don't have to worry about this right now.
Right. And you and the rest of the world.
Right.
So that put a little sting in it, giving up a job.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It did.
Okay.
Plus the fact that it's always an issue with my kids and my husband, and he'll kind of say, are we really going to go? Are you going to go on this trip? Are you going to do this? Are you going to be a total disaster? It's no fun, And so I know I'm a pain in the ass to fly with.
Okay.
I know that.
Okay. But a lovable pain in the ass. Okay.
I hope.
Very
Hey,
much.
Lauren, how about you? Yeah, could you just bring us up to date on, like how far back does your fear go? Where you were born and a little bit about your life and stuff.
So I live in Massachusetts, and when I was younger, we used to go to Disney World with my grandmother, my dad, and aunts and uncles and cousins, and there'd be usually about 15 of us. And I loved flying, and I wanted the window seat, and I had no fear at all. And then later on in my early 20s, I was having anxiety in my life, and I didn't think it would be an issue if I flew, but it was coming home. I had a panic attack the whole 3 hours home, and it was really paralyzing. And I've missed out on trips. My husband won a trip to Cancun a couple of years ago, and he took his best friend instead of me because I wouldn't go. And my stepdaughter is 19. She is in college now in Las Vegas, and she's in her sophomore year. We haven't been out to see her yet. And my son is 6 and really wants to go to Disney World and asks me probably 4 times a week when we're going to Disney. So I feel like I can't avoid not flying anymore. I'm ready to I'm holding my family back. So I'm ready to deal with this. But I don't have anxiety and panic attacks in general. I guess I'm just worried that the same thing will happen, but that was 20 years ago, actually, that I had the panic attack. I went on 3 trips after that, and I did okay, but it was really hard. But I had meditations. I took Xanax. I did everything I possibly could. But for whatever reason, I've been avoiding flying for 10 years. It's 10.5 years since I've been on an airplane.
Wow.
Okay. Well, the good news about not being able to go to Vegas, if you can't get to Vegas, you don't have to worry about it staying in Vegas. But other than that's the most I could come up with on short notice for humor out of that. So anyway, so I kind of preface this thing because it really is an attention problem, and when what happens is your attention gets hijacked, and our attention is like the good news and the bad news, right? Because we couldn't live without it. Because you need it to keep you alert or to warn you of impending danger. It's connected to the fear mechanism and all that. But when it gets hijacked and you can't think of anything else other than that, than what's in your floodlight or your flashlight, that's when it really becomes bothersome. So I'll ask Nicole. So when sometime today, Nicole, did you have a thought about the flight coming up on Thursday?
Oh, obsessive today. Absolutely. Right. And as I mentioned before, I've been working on this since April. We took a flight to Tampa. I got through it and got through it on the way home. That's the best I'll put. And I have been working on this. But it used to be for 2 weeks. I was a mess. So it is better that it's just been 3 days, but I have forgotten because my thoughts are so obsessed with the flight, I've forgotten to pick up my kid. I've forgotten to call somebody for work that I needed because that's all I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
So it's hijacked. Yeah.
So when we
Side
talk
check.
about, the solution is going to be centered in somehow to regain control over your attention, right? So it, and it's too much probably to hope for it all coming back at once and staying under control for the entire time. That's just not realistic because that doesn't work. Even if you're in the midst of passionately making out with somebody or whatever, you still think about, maybe the oven being on or something like that. We'll still have intermittent thoughts on that. So that's never going to be the end game there. But tonight, let's just really, all of us, we're going to brainstorm and think, what the hell could I do to break that lock on my attention? Okay. So Lauren, you shared with us that you don't have panic attacks or anything. So thinking about the flight, you did write me, full disclosure, you said, hey, I'm thinking about the flight in about a couple of weeks there, and I'm starting to think about it. So when you wrote me that email there, can you recall that or other times, what was going through your mind at that point in time, as specifically as you can get?
I mean, I was doing good through February, but now that it's March 1st, so now I know the flight now we're in March. So now I'm starting to think, like, how am I going to get to the airport? Who's going to drive us? Who's going to watch our son? What do I even pack if we're just going there for lunch and coming home? So I'm already like stressing about the whole process. And I just woke up today with really high anxiety. So I watched the harmonizer through the curriculum for the class. And then I felt fantastic and empowered and just, I can do this. So I just know it's all in my mind. But I was saying to you, Captain Ron, earlier, when you called me out of the blue, which was a very nice surprise, it's almost like when you're going to an amusement park and you're going to go on the roller coaster that goes upside down 80 miles an hour and you're waiting in line, and then you're next and then you're sitting and then they click the seat close and you know that you're putting yourself into this position that's totally crazy and uncomfortable, but exciting. And I'm starting to feel like that. Like I'm putting myself into the flight on March 12th and I'm nervous and excited and scared.
Okay. And that was a great example. When I shared with you, I went to water slide last summer or summer before, and they got this, to me, it was new, where you stand in this thing and there's two of you at the same time, and they just literally slide the bottom of the floor out from under you and you just plummet, and the whole ride lasts for maybe 10 seconds. I mean, you are gone, and I remember I went there with my best friend and his two high school age girls. And of course, they can't get to it fast enough, and I'm walking up slowly in line, thank God for the line and stuff like that. And the closer I get, I'm having the same kind of thoughts. And I really did kind of do it as research to see, remind myself what it's like when you're afraid to fly. And as I got closer and closer, I was asking myself, what the hell are you doing? You don't have to do this, and then we did it once, and it was every bit of my imagination. It was like, but I jumped out of airplanes and stuff, and I've had that feeling where you jump and your heart goes up in your throat. That's the best way I can describe it when you do fall like that. But the beauty of it is you can't hold that kind of anxiety or anticipation, because once you start moving, then you're into the rest of the sensations. And the second time we duplicated it, it didn't have the same thing. And I dare say, if you ride the roller coaster the second time, it doesn't have the same thrill that it did the first time. So speaking specifically to you, Lauren, one of the things that I can almost guarantee you is we're going to go from Boston to Baltimore. And by the time we get about 15 minutes in the air, this is fairly typical. Most of your anxiety will pretty much be quelled. There may be, if we hit some turbulence or something like that, you may have a little bit of a burble like that. But I think the biggest advantage is because we're doing it in a group of people and you got other people around you. So you don't have that same sense of shame and embarrassment, like, oh God, if everybody knew what I would, because those other people are thinking about themselves and not you, right? But when we get to Baltimore, the most amazing thing is people actually get bored. Even if we only have to kill like an hour waiting for the flight to go back, that you can tell the anticipation now is I want to get back into my life, kind of. It's not I'm anxious about getting on the airplane again. And there may be, when we actually step on the airplane coming back, there may be a little bit of that, but by and large, it's going to be, like, okay, I've done this. And then the real challenge after that is to sustain that level of confidence and the ability to use your control, your attention there. And over to you, Nicole. You're going to have a similar kind of experience, I believe. You're going to, you've been working, both of you have been working on it, and what does that mean? That means I've been thinking about it in a way other than what I only was limited to before, right? I have a fellow that he's in the class and he's up in Chicago, and I'm going to go up to Chicago on Sunday and fly back with him. And he took the train as an alternative. He just wasn't ready to fly, but I hope he'll come on here and talk about his 40-hour train ride. When he got there, he said, I'll do anything not to ride the train for 40 hours again. Because apparently there's no Wi-Fi stations, or towers along the train tracks, because they frankly don't go through heavily populated areas for most of the west of the Mississippi, that is. So anyway, so back to Nicole, what I was thinking about is, you should enjoy some of that same thing. You're probably going to get the same kind of satisfaction because of the work you've been doing. So it's not going to be as bad as it was before. And, both of you will still have anxiety almost assuredly when you get on, because it just doesn't go away. You just don't have that kind of, you don't have that experience normalizing it. And that's really what we're talking about. But I try to tell people, when it comes to normalizing, think of other times in your life when you've had situations like the roller coaster. Okay. And you could see that if you had enough time and money to ride that roller coaster 10 times in a row in the next hour or so, you can see by the time you got to the 10th one, it would barely raise a bubble on your thing there, and that's the problem with flying is you don't have that, nobody has the time, the money and the resources to get on an airplane and fly from Boston to Baltimore 30 times in a month, but I dare say even if you did, after about the 10th flight for sure, you'd call me up and say, enough of this, I'm good, and that's what happens to people. When over time I hear back from them, they say, I'm good. And they'll tell me, some of them, if they haven't flown for a while, they'll feel the anxiety building up, but they'll remember some of the things that they did. And I'm a big fan of audio, but it's got to be audio that has some kind of uniqueness to it. Because if you listen to your oldies but goodies songs, your brain is smart enough. It says, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to distract me. Ain't going to work, because I've already memorized all those songs. So that's why I created the harmonizer, which is one thing. And do you both have that, or just?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah. So I tell people, especially if they call me and they've got 24 hours before and that's the first time and the only time we'll be able to talk before they get on the airplane, I tell them, get the harmonizer. If it doesn't work, I'll give you your money back, but get it. And as much as you can, listen to it. If you got one night before you fly, listen to it that night, try to listen to it in the morning. Okay. And then when you get to the airport, I would play the damn thing continuously. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to Bahamas, what is that about a 4-hour flight maybe? Or?
No, it's about 2.5 actually.
2.5. Okay. So nice little flight. So 2.5, I say the harmonizer is basically 30 minutes. So I say that's 5 harmonizers. and I turn it up as loud as you can stand it in your ear without causing permanent damage. Seriously, because even if you are in a setting where there's loud noise, but you voluntarily went there, like a band or a nightclub or something like that, you can still think it all that. But there is a point when you turn noise up, because that's one of our inherent fears is loud noise. So there's a point at which it garners your attention, just like an anxious thought about flying would. And that's why I say the key is to turn it up loud. It's stereo, so you get bilateral stimulation that we were talking about a little before we started here, and you play it loud so you literally can't hear yourself think, because it's your thinking in the moment that you're trying to disrupt or distract from. It's probably the best thing I can say to anybody, especially if you have less time there. Now, when you have more time, now you can talk about specific things, and that's why I started with asking you, what do you remember when you started to feel the anxiety? And so those are triggers, and the trigger mechanism in our brain is designed just for that. It's for your fight or flight system to alert you to something that's potentially harmful. Trouble is, it doesn't know the difference between a thought about flying and turbulence and the reality of something, being harmful on that. So anyway, and you can, with kids and stuff, you could probably make a recording of your kids carrying on around the house at a time when it was annoying you, and you could probably replay that. I don't think there's any monopoly on, I don't know. I'd love the feedback, but there's no monopoly, and the typical male thing, dad's watching the football game, the kids are terrorizing the house, and mom comes in and says, Ron, can you not hear that? And of course not, because he's completely selectively tuned that out, but you couldn't, for whatever reason. So you might do that and sell it on the internet as a Fear of Flying, audio. So and speaking of that, I went through, let me see if I can find it here. I went through today a Facebook capture here. Let me see. I'll look for it later. And a dialogue on there. I think it was to you, Nicole, wasn't it? You were the one that I think went on there, and then a bunch of people contributed to it. They were giving you advice and all that. And so I said, I'm going to read this and see what kind of advice my people are giving out, and some of them said, call Ron, and some said, get the harmonizer and all that. But there were a couple that said, go on YouTube and Google Fear of Flying hypnotherapy. So I did. And one of the videos that came up was a gal named Mel Robbins, and she's probably, a lot more women would know about her, but she's fairly popular. She has her own kind of home therapy business, and she's got a lot of listeners and all that. So she was taking a flight from Boston, I think, to Long Beach, a very long flight. And she obviously had thought this out beforehand. So she had somebody recording her video, and she said, I got 5 steps and all that. Well, the first one was, think of something on the other end, basically the why that you're flying. Okay. So, and I totally agree with that, but I've yet to see anybody, and I've been asked a lot of times for interviews, give me 3 steps, Ron, that people can do to get over their flying. Give me 5 steps, and I say, give me 5 steps in 5 years, because that's, unless you do anything else, it's going to be hard to do that. But the message was good. It was, think about the end goal, but you all can, I'm going to shut up here for a minute, and you can tell me, how hard is it to think of the end goal when your anxiety triggers, when you're driving to the airport or you're sitting in the boarding area waiting?
For me, nearly impossible. Enough that the anxiety is so strong that the end goal doesn't matter. It can just thousands of dollars out the window, and you're just like, I don't care. I'm not going. Yeah. I don't care that it's thousands of dollars. Yeah. And I don't care that it's this big job. I don't care. And so it doesn't always matter when the anxiety is high, for me at least.
Yeah. How about you, Lauren? You have an experience with that?
I've just been avoiding flying for so many years that it's just like, don't even ask me about booking a trip, because we're not going. It's really sad.
Got it. So that's why I firmly believe in learning from people like you all for the past 35 years, what does work. And what works is some way that each one of you individually, even though there's a lot of commonality about it, there's got to be some way where each of you capture or come up with a way when your attention gets hijacked, and it's going to get hijacked for the most of you. If your fear is that bad that you've been avoiding flying, or dreading it, you're not over the stage where your attention is not going to peak up there, especially if you haven't flown for a while. And so when that happens, that's why I say you've got to have something. And the reason I like audio products, strange audio products, and probably none as strange as me, but you've got to have something that is interesting, on the very least, to your brain, right? Because I joke with people. Let's say I was going with you, Lauren, and well, I will be going with you, and we get on here, and you're feeling the anxiety. We get on the plane in Boston, and it's oh god, you know, and here we go, going to the runway, and then we stop and we delay, you know, while they're waiting for traffic or whatever, you know, and all that. It's getting worse and worse and worse. But in that moment, I was sitting next to you, and I pulled a gun. Where would your attention be?
On you and the gun?
Exactly. I mean, that to me is the whole craziness about it, you know, in that moment, and probably more so because not only were you surprised to see me got a gun because you knew what it must have taken to get it through security, but the most enduring thing is, holy cow, he was here to help me and now he's got a gun, you know. And if you fully believe that I had lost it and was willing to, you know, use that on you or somebody else like that, it'd be even more. But isn't it interesting now that your biggest fear that you could identify maybe in your life at that point completely vaporizes, only to be replaced by another one. But that's it. So that's, you know, so that's the kind of, you know, contrast that I make, you know, it's what you're up against. But that's why I say audio. And I happen to be lucky because I do like audio. I like audio books. I like them. And once you get to the point where you don't have to turn the music up to 120 decibels, you know, to kind of drive the attention away, then you can get into, you know, maybe get into something where you can listen to an audiobook because they have a theatrical bend to them. Where you know, depending on what you want to read, I like nonfiction and stuff, but there's a lot of great research and stuff and stories that I love to follow and all that. So it helps. And I say when you choose something audio, something that you're really interested, and I even prefer that over video for the most part, because you would think that the audio and the video would add another level of you know, attention grabbing, but I think we're so used to TV that we can watch TV and just completely not be there at the same time. So that's why I kind of like audio. And again, I may try my own idea about finding somebody's kids that are on a rampage and record them, you know, but it's just that when we put the harmonizer together, we specifically recorded 4 people talking, and there's overlap in it. And then there's music in there. And so, and you know, you both know that, you know, it's was designed to be just interesting enough that your brain would kind of would want to listen to it and attempt until it made sense out of that. And it turns out for most people, that's it. So Diane had an example. She just, was it today or yesterday?
It
Diane?
was this morning. We were flying from Oklahoma City to Los Angeles, which is a pretty long flight. I was the aft flight attendant, and people were boarding. And as I'm looking up front, I could see that there was a couple standing, a man and a woman standing in the galley, talking with the forward flight attendant, and kind of intensely, you know, not dangerously or anything, but just intensely, which is a little unusual. And so when I had the opportunity, I walked forward, and come to find out that the young woman was very afraid to fly. And she was with a traveling companion. And it was one of those moments I thought, oh my goodness, did you come to the right flight attendant? Because I've been doing this now with Ron for almost 7 years. And so, but she expressed something which many of you do, which is as she was standing there, she said, I am just so afraid I'm going to freak out. She literally used those words, that she was afraid she was going to freak out. And the other flight attendant, Linda, and we chatted with her, and I gave her some words of wisdom, of course, that Ron would be sharing with her were he there at that time. And so anyway, the upshot was I gave her a couple of tools. I spoke with her traveling companion, and I said, just talk with her, distract her, and those kinds of things. And explained about turbulence. She was concerned about turbulence. And we talked about turbulence a little bit, and turbulence doesn't bring down planes, and it's like a big speed bump and all those other kinds of things. And she did very well. And it's about over 3-hour flight. And a couple different times as I walked down the aisle, she was asleep. Not only was she not freaking out, she was not gripping the armrest. She had gotten her snack and her beverage, and she consumed those, and she went to sleep, and she was asleep for a good portion of the trip. So it was just a function of, as Ron has always said, when you board the plane, if you're anxious, talk to the flight attendants. And we had the wonderful opportunity to talk with her, to allay her fears. If she had any questions at all, to ring the call button, whatever, get our attention, ask us, so we could answer those things and give her some information and some support along with her traveling companion. And it was just, she was just wonderful. She wound up having a very good time. And it was kind of interesting. The forward flight attendant did explain to her that I fly in a little plane. It's a regional plane, only 65 passengers. And the captain had checked, and our little plane was the only way to go nonstop from Oklahoma City to Los Angeles. And so it was going to be our little plane or no plane at all. And so that helped a little bit, I think. But basically, it just helped with her expressing her concern very honestly to both Linda and me, and our being able to be there for her if she had any concerns or questions. So it was great.
It's too bad we can't get her on here, because we could say, what do you remember more than anything? And I would say the attention is probably one of the biggest ones. So for you, Nicole, I highly recommend that you, what airline are you flying down there on?
Southwest.
Southwest. Oh, that's right. So so they're really good about it. And I hope that you'll, remember to say, I have a medical condition, and pre-board. And that takes a little bit of courage to do that, because a lot of us don't want to think, it's not that bad, and so it's based in not wanting the adverse attention, but not wanting any attention at all for most of them. So when if you check a bag, you can do it at that bag check, or if you wait till you get to the gate, you can do it there. But in either case, since it is Southwest and there are no pre-assigned seats, what you want to do is say, hi, my name is Nicole. I have a medical condition, and I need a special seat. If you already had a pre-assigned seat on another airline, you would say, I need extra time. Okay. But with Southwest, you say special seat. That puts you up in front of everybody, all the A's, B's, and C's, and you're going to board with the people that do genuinely need assistance with the wheelchair. They will not let you sit in the emergency exit row, because they assume that you have some disability that would prevent you from functioning at the highest level. Okay, so that's what you do. Now, when you get on the airplane boarding early, and you can always say you'll be with your husband, you can always board with one other person in your party. So if you had 2 children with you and your husband, you could take one of the kids or whatever. Okay. So now when you go down the jetway and you greet the flight attendant there at the door, you say, hi, my name's Nicole. And now you can say, I have a little fear of flying, or I'm a little nervous. Okay. I don't recommend saying that to the boarding agents that are going to give you that, because in their best, most well-intentioned, aura, they're going to start saying, oh, honey, it's okay. Don't worry about it. And then I see you breaking down, say, well, yeah, okay. And, no, you just say, I have a medical condition, and they're prohibited from asking you, what's the problem? Okay. That's all. Okay. So then when you get to the flight attendant, that's when you say, I'm a little nervous about flying. I'd like to meet the pilot. And 9 times out of 10, or even greater odds, they'll let you up there. And now when you talk to them, hi, my name is Lauren. I'm a little nervous about flying. And anything you can tell me today about the flight, I would appreciate. Okay. And be prepared for anything from, wow, a little bumpy, I just came in, or it was bumpy, not too bad, or whatever. You're not really so much interested in what they actually say. I hate to say that, but that's true. You're interested in making a connection and taking it out of the realm of an autopilot up there, or a robot that has no feelings. You want to see somebody who's real, connected, and wants to live just as badly as you do. Whether your fear is about the airplane crashing or whether it's about claustrophobia, you want to see somebody up there. And you are training him to let him know that not everybody on this airplane has flown as much as he has or she has. Okay. And now if you go down there with your husband, you can send your husband back, grab a seat for you while you're doing that. And now you've identified, as Diane said, to the flight attendant, and without a doubt, they will check on you a little bit more as they walk up and down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll do the same thing on the group flight, Lauren. We'll board early. I will probably say something to the crew and the pilots there, but we'll go back and get our seats there. But we'll see. And Southwest, I love them because they have such a wide variety of what they consider normal. And we've had some where they actually, one of my biggest classes, they came back to me and said, do you mind if I ask them if any of them want to help us serve peanuts when they were still serving peanuts? And I said, go for it. And there was a woman who wasn't sure whether she's going to stay on the airplane, but did. She was leading the pack. She was going up and down the aisle. I mean, and the entire group of people all the passengers got the biggest kick out of it. I mean, they couldn't buy that kind of advertising, and they had just a blast. And we had some that put on a stand-up comedy routine, and incorporated us into their routine as flyers, talking about people's courage and all that. So it's kind of not climactic, but the antithesis of what you would expect out of a fearful flyer, right? Is saying, hey, I'm a little nervous. I could use your support. Okay, because we don't do that as humans. We just don't. We normally wall off the rest of the world, go into our own little womb, and have a pity party, and that's the last thing you want to do. So those are some things you could do. Now, I'll say briefly. I don't know if your husband's around there or not, but what I was going to say for people who have somebody that loves them traveling with them. And for you, Nicole, you can do this with your husband if you can get him to cooperate, because I think most of the time, most people, they just don't know what to say or do. And so they feel, they feel less than, they feel bad that they don't know that, so they either kind of distance you from them, or they go into their own world back there. But the main thing that somebody traveling with you can do is when they see you and they recognize it's a peak moment, to say, Nicole, look at me. And you want them to make eye contact. I mean, literally about 8 to 12 inches away from each other's faces and square on, and you can practice that at home with your husband. Say, sit down. What's your husband's name?
Mine's Jeff. Jeff, believe it or not.
Sit down. We got to talk. All right. Anyway, but if you can do that, say, here's what I want you to do, big guy. When you see that I'm nervous, and instead of me cutting off the circulation to your arms, what I want you to do is just say, hey, Nicole, hey, honey, look at me, and make sure I make eye contact, and don't let me look away. How long? Just until you get that puppy in the air, because that's all you're going to need. After that, you're going to be able to relax and probably do some of the other things if it's that big a deal. And look into my eyes, and the only thing he's got to say to you is, talk to me. And get you to verbalize. And what that does, it brings you into this moment. Looking into his eyes, you can't escape 2 years down the road or go into your past. You got to be right there, because it's weird looking at, even if you love the person, it's weird under those circumstances looking right in their eyes. But it's the most powerful thing you can do. And it brings your concentration in that moment, because fear only happens in the past and in the future. Right? We go in the past to find something to trigger us, and then we project into the future. And that's what anticipatory anxiety is all about. It's about imagining somewhere else, because you're okay in that moment. You might not like it, but you're okay. You got all the water you need. You got all the food you need. You got all the airspeed you need. You got all the competent pilots and crews that you need. You just don't have the confidence that the next moment is going to be okay. How do you get there? You just stay in this one and let the next one come along to you, rather than you going to try to run out and grab it. Okay. So that's probably the essence of what I would say tonight to anybody who might be listening that's really, really worried. They got a flight coming up and they've not done anything. But the two of you have done other things, So I know we're going to talk tomorrow, Nicole, and I know we'll talk before you fly, Lauren. So we'll be able to fine tune that. But the main thing I want people to do is to have a plan for the critical moment when your attention goes off and you can't get it back normally. And the one last thing I'll say, by the Diane talked about, I have people write with their non-preferred hand. So verbalizing is one way. So you're walking down the jetway and you're thinking, oh God, I wish I wouldn't have listened to Ron, because this is not working. When you do that, you still have a choice. And that is to put one foot in front of the other and just be with the pain. The biggest choice that you want to make is to keep moving and get on the airplane, because you're going to survive. You're going to have a bang up time in the Bahamas or wherever you're going. Okay. But you got to get on the airplane. So you got to talk yourself through that. When you get to the seat, after you talk to the crew and stuff, you get the pilot, stuff like that. But now you can, when you're sitting there and you're really anxious, you can still make a choice of writing with your non-preferred hand, get a little, just a little dinky little notepad or something like, whoops, it disappeared, something like that, so that you can write down thoughts like, I hate this feeling. And then when you I don't even want to write right now, but Ron said that he'll kill me if I don't. So I'm going to write this, and then I'm going to shove it up where the sun doesn't shine when I see him next time. All right. Literally, you want to get all of that emotions down through your non-preferred arm onto paper. All right. And because you can do that. I don't care but what happens is people get so overwhelmed, they turn into the victim and they say, I can't do that. I can't do that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You might not want to, you might not like it, but you can do it. And those are the most critical times to make those choices. And now once you get past them, it does get easier. It does get easier. And you can't be that anxious for 2.5 hours. You'll be exhausted. So, okay. Any closing thoughts or comments from either of you, since I dominated the conversation again? But
no, I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and I appreciate all of this and having us on tonight and everything that you guys do to help us.
I appreciate you guys just saying, are you crazy? Yeah, no, because it takes a lot of courage, and that's going to serve you better than anything else you could do. It's just, that's why I say, sharing it with other people and getting it out from behind the closed door and out of the darkness is the best. Lauren, the same with you. Yeah. I just surprised this dropped you, and I'm so grateful that you could do it.
I'm glad you called me tonight and invited me to join the call, because I didn't know if I was going to be on this call, but very excited that you're going to be on the flight with me next Saturday. So
me too.
I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. You want to come to the Bahamas on Thursday?
I'd like to go.
If I could, I'd consider it. If I could get back in time to fly on Saturday, because I'm flying with some people out of Phoenix on Saturday. So yeah, so I got 3 weeks of flying here. And what I look forward to flying is particularly when I'll be going from here to Boston or something like that. I like the time when I don't have anybody. I can't answer the phone. All I can do is just sit there, and I get caught up in podcasts and reading and stuff. So anyway, Dieter, any comments that we should address or anything? Or
well, yeah, so lots of empathy and lots of love, and for both of your courage, Nicole and Lauren, and that's so much part of it, right? It's meeting that anxiety, meeting that fear, meeting that embarrassment potential, and that is literally changing which nervous system is going to be active. And we had a great comment there. I just want to repeat it, that anxiety and excitement actually use the exact same neural pathways in the brain. The difference between the two of them is simply which nervous system is activated to interpret it, right?
Yeah.
So that can be so confounding sometimes, because we literally have two different nervous systems, and they interpret the same electrical activity and chemical activity, but they interpret it different, and so we experience different emotional states. And there's nothing really wrong with us. We just got to train which of these nervous systems is going to be with us in that moment, right? And so
and maintain an awareness of which one is working right now. It's like Mother Nature said, I'm going to design this thing called a human being, and I got to protect them, but I also want them to enjoy all the fun in life, what the hell, I'll just use the same nervous system. I just, and so it is, so it's up to us to choose which one we want to respond to.
And then just real quick, so that extra time for the boarding as well, like when you have more time, this is a great time where you really kind of get, like Ron said, it's kind of where you focus on yourself, you practice the tools and the strategies that you've learned, or if you're, in your case, it's not true, but if somebody's by themselves, that's when they put on the harmonizer, and that's what Michelle, one of our attendees, also said. That's when I put on the harmonizer and I get myself ready, and it's setting yourself up for success ultimately.
Yeah.
And I just want to say also that, again, with Nicole and Lauren, you're very brave. You were really, both of you, showing a great deal of courage to be able to come on this evening and to talk about your fears. And it's very heartwarming. The passenger that we had this morning, she was very open and honest. And like I said, she said, "I'm so afraid I'm going to freak out." And I thought, my little heart was just opening up to her, because I thought that took a lot of courage for her to say those things to the other flight attendant and to myself, to be so upfront. And I was like, oh my God, we are going to help this woman as whatever we can do, because that showed a lot of courage for her to say those things. It really was amazing.
So when you use the harmonizer enough, like 5 times on the way to the Bahamas, that you want to reach through and strangle me because you're so sick and tired, you're getting better, right? That's the first sign, is when you want to strangle me. And I'll personally show up on your doorstep so you can put your hands around my neck if you want, because that's worthy of a celebration. So anyway, all right. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, Dieter and Diane. And unless you guys have anything else, I think that's enough for Fearless Flight for this week. Thanks a lot of you. And I'll talk to you tomorrow, Nicole, and you coming up, Lauren. So thanks. Have a great week, and everybody, hope you come back next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.